In this video, we will talk about what nature spirits are and how to get in touch with them. Nature spirits appear in almost all ethnic religions, myths and fairy tales, and there they are often described as industrious beings that can be found everywhere in nature. In Germanic mythology, for example, they are described as imps, elves and giants, in folk belief as fairies and gnomes, and among the Greeks as nymphs and sylphs. In all these ideas we are dealing with symbolic figures which are supposed to represent the energy beings of nature. In many fairy tales, nature spirits have magical powers with which they are either help or harm people, such as in the fairy tale Rumpelstiltskin, in which the imp-like creature first spins the queen's straw into gold and then takes her child as a reward. Fairy tales can be a valuable introduction to the study of nature beings, because in them are hidden deep truths and inspiring images. Every culture and time has its own worldview and its own way of dealing with the belief in nature spirits. For example, dealing with nature spirits in Iceland is still very much alive today, and there are spirit experts who communicate with nature spirits, and consideration is given to the invisible beings by, for example, laying road courses around dwellings of nature spirits. But all traditions have one thing in common: the belief that all nature beings work in some way for the continuity of the earth and supply nature with energy. When you move in nature, the nature spirits accompany you, and it is a wonderful, very memorable experience to get in contact with these beings. The beings of nature are very different in their energetic quality, and meeting them is a very subtle process. And to be sure that you really had an encounter with them, it is helpful to talk with an experienced teacher about your own experiences. I personally have noticed that wishful thinking and reality sometimes diverge, and therefore I recommend, especially in the beginning, to use the support and guidance of an earth magic teacher. The transition from winter to spring is a time in nature when the nature beings become more active again, and therefore it is also a good time to seek contact with them. There are some places in my area where I have already met one or another nature being, and it is always a magical moment for me when the contact between the nature being and the human soul arises. For example, one special moment I had was the contact I had with a being that has its place in a rosehip bush. This experience was so special because it was one of the first encounters with a nature being. During this encounter, very intense feelings and images arose within me, and I realized that there are very many things hidden in nature that we do not see with our eyes, and often we make decisions from such a human pragmatic point of view. For example, we wanted to remove this rosehip bush because the children were often playing under its thorny branches. The children have never hurt themselves on it, but as a precautionary measure, it seems reasonable to some adults to remove this bush. With the encounter of this natural creature, I realized that we humans have a much greater responsibility for the well-being of nature than we sometimes realize. These beings depend on our mindfulness, care and respect, and if we treat them in this way, a harmonious friendship can grow out of it. And imagine what it would be like if all people met nature with such deep mindfulness and respect. What a wonderful world we could have. I would be happy if the video has inspired you and you want to gather your own experiences with nature beings, and I'm happy to be at your disposal if you have any further questions on this topic. And if you would like to discuss your experience with an experienced earth magic teacher, there will be the opportunity to attend our next meeting of earth magic students. Goodbye and see you in the next video.